Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Delighted to be here. And thank you to my esteemed panelists for joining us. Quick bit of housekeeping. We will be accepting audience questions, so do keep that in mind as we make our way through today's discussion. Again, thank you for joining.
It's great to be here.
All right, let's jump right into things. Courtney, at Blackstone, which has well over 250 portfolio companies, you focus not just on hiring CEOs, but building them, developing them internally. What does that really look like in practice, and what kind of scaffolding is required to move someone to being just operationally strong, to really being a strong enterprise CEO and a leader?
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's what you said. Look, we focus primarily, really early in the deal life cycle on identifying CEOs and board chairs. Those are the two anchors for a deal. Sometimes we have an incumbent CEO we can back. Sometimes we need to identify. But it does not stop there, right? It's a team sport, and so we are looking for the team that will complement the CEO. She or he has distinguishing strengths. Hopefully those distinguishing strengths align with the deal thesis, but it's a team, and so we look for a full team, and it doesn't just stop at the C-suite, right? We'll go down into specifically the kind of mission-critical areas aligned with the investment thesis. But that's just the starting point, and Howard will talk about it, but that's day one, or actually day zero, and then we try to coach, develop them to be the best versions. We look at succession planning because it's just the right thing to do. Things happen. We have opportunities to seize, and also ultimately when we go to exit, they want a good, strong leadership team that's going to sustain. So I wish it were just identifying a CEO and one and done, but what makes it fun is kind of the end-to-end whole ecosystem.
You use the term investment thesis. For those who don't understand, how do you characterize that? What does that mean?
Yeah, an investment thesis is simply put, when we're thinking about investing in a company, what is the value creation? What are we going to do? In general, we think, what are the 2 to 3, 4 things we're going to do to create value? We invest in growth. We don't look at distressed assets. We're not, sometimes maybe there's a cost, but how are we going to fundamentally create value that what we sell it for is more than what we bought it for? And it tends to be a couple pretty simple things. It could be grow top-line revenue through new products. It could be an M&A build platform. There's always a talent component. But it's simply what are the couple things we need to do. What's important in investment thesis, and will guide everything, is we quantify. If this is point of departure, when we sell it, or we look at 12 months, 18 months, kind of what do we hope it will be at the end? What is the value? And then we work backwards to the people. So that's what it is, simply.
Absolutely. And I know it's far more nuanced on that, but that's a great way to encompass it all. Howard, turn over to you. You've held a hybrid CFO COO role prior to your CEO placement. I'm curious what surprised you most about the transition from operations chief to CEO, learning curve, and kind of walk us through that ascension story.
Sorry, it's surprise. There's plenty of...
Nothing.
Yeah. Wish that were the case. No, there is. There's a lot of surprise, and I've been with Ancestry 17, 18 years in that capacity, and even sometime as interim CEO. And so it's different. It pivoted into a always on, and at the end of the day, you're the one ultimately accountable. So, good day in terms of, revenue, or bad day, you feel like it's on you. Where, not that you didn't own that when you were CFO or COO, but now 100% of that is on you, 100% of the customer, sentiment on you. So more of the full scope of ownership and what that means to you. And then it goes to growth. The number one job, back to this investment thesis, right? Everybody wants a successful exit. To do that, you have to grow the company. And so now it's spending 110% of my time on growth. And so the surprise was more just, I thought I was doing that as CFO and Chief Operating Officer, but you definitely feel a whole lot differently when you're every day. If you're out camping, looking at a beautiful lake, like unfortunately or good or bad, like somehow it gets into your mind, like, man, this great product idea or customer idea. So it's more of a 24/7 obsession.
Yeah. Let me turn to you. Moment of truth. Why Howard?
I'm dying to hear that.
Gotten on the record. Here we go, right. Howard. That's high stakes. Actually, Howard made it so easy for us. So one of the things we do, as I said, we think about succession planning day one. So we talk about it a lot, but the minute we have a CEO in, it's the time to start thinking about her or his succession. we were so lucky. I mean, not only has Howard been with the company for 17 years, he's held multiple roles, multiple sponsors, understands, but the investment thesis pivoted. I mean, just like all of your job strategies used to be, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5-year strategies, but we are moving quickly based on the disruption, the opportunity, and the investment thesis shifted, which meant that we needed different leadership at the time. And we were fortunate enough through the succession planning, the dialogue, to objectively have the right leader inside to go execute. And so it was so clear, and he won't say this, but he's 6 months into the role and crushing it. And he should describe why, but a lot of it is not the more of what you're doing, it's actually the less. And so right leader, not coincidentally, and again, the conversation about we don't look to just Howard to do everything. How do we help Howard build his team, the scaffolding to be able to execute?
Let's dig into that a notch. Blackstone acquired Ancestry for almost $5 billion around 2020. Howard, you stepped into the CEO role amid leadership churn at a rival firm, 23andMe, and amid some volatility in the genetic testing space. So I'm curious how you plan to drive growth in a space where perhaps there's not as much commercial upside, some would say, as there were in years past.
Yeah, listen, we're focused as a company on family history. And I changed the mission of the company virtually on day one from a, sort of focus on everything, just information. There was a point at which we were doing health. I changed the mission of the company back to this investment thesis point. It's to help everyone, everyone, discover, preserve, and share their family story. So it's very much a family history-focused company. Our business, our database, more than twice the size of our competitor. So consumers have said, hey, we want that family history thing. We don't want that other thing, right? And so we're doubling down and focused on family history. Since we have done that, to Courtney's point, we have pulled back some of this other distractions that we were giving to consumers to focus on the core value prop. And since we have done that, and frankly, we started this at the end of last year, business is growing, customer satisfaction growing, employee satisfaction is growing. So it's a growth business, again, focused on family history.
Yeah. Courtney, I want to turn to you because, as Howard, you've already alluded to, before you were appointed CEO, you were focused on capital allocation, M&A expansion. Is there power in speaking the same financial language as your investors, especially if you're a company that's private equity backed?
Yeah, there is, but there's equally a shadow side, which is we've gotten ourselves into trouble. They speak our language. The numbers, we speak in numbers. We love it. We're attracted. I think there's a risk to that sometimes, which we can overstate and overindex on the fact that they're financially fluid. We speak the same language. What we try to do, and we've learned from, is we need the full package. So absolutely threshold, but not sufficient without the rest of it. We need a fully formed CEO, or at least on the path to be fully formed. So yes, it's required, but it's not sufficient.
You said the full package. What does that entail? What are the qualities?
What
are the traits?
I love being with you.
Our audience wants to know, what does it take?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're going to push me on this. You're not going to like my answer. It depends.
Sure.
Each investment, right? We have 250 companies. We probably look at 10x that a year. It's a snowflake of an investment. The individual, we literally, with each investment, we kind of start with a blank slate and say, what does that CEO need to do to be successful? And it's right with that investment thesis. And there's some truths in all of it. Can they, can they articulate the strategy, create a vision and strategy? Can they galvanize the team, win hearts and minds? Can they allocate resources? Can they communicate? So there's some truths we need, but really specific as we step back, and this is probably true for all of your roles, which is what uniquely does that CEO need to do to be successful and execute the investment thesis and get the realized returns we want? You and I have talked about it. I mean, we don't stop there, because I think one of the things we've learned in our world is that's not even sufficient. There's a lot that goes with that. But we've learned that there are success modes and failure modes that go along with being successful at our sport. The challenge for Howard and everyone in our world is we try to create long-term value in a short-term horizon. So accelerated value creation, it is not easy. It's not easy for Howard. It's not easy for anyone on the team. And so we need folks who are resilient. We need folks who cognitively can keep up, really importantly, one of the biggest, we need folks who can communicate with us and not just good news, right? We want folks who are coming to us with questions. We always say we are partners to leverage, not stakeholders to manage. That's a mindset shift for a lot of people, right? We want early questions, early issues. So what trips people up actually is not any of the things we just generally talked about, experience, do they fit the investment thesis? It's some of these leadership traits that we try to assess for and get right a lot, but not always.
Yeah, and I know you have a very rigorous assessment. It seems you wanted to say something.
Sorry, just to go back to this, what makes a successful C-suite with sponsors. This is my fourth sponsor.
The best?
and the best.
On the record.
Say that, though. Do you hear that?
And listen, and so in some sense, sponsors are very straightforward. Like, they want returns. And so if you have this just absolute fidelity and just this loyalty to maximizing enterprise value, you get there. And so extreme transparency, good and bad. And I have found even the bad, the partnership is worth everything. And you work through bad. Every company goes bump in the night at some point. And so as long as you have this extreme partnership and focus on, moving the stock price, you get to the right outcome. And that results in hard conversations. And you don't always see eye to eye, but if you're looking and aligned on the thesis, you'll get there. And again, 4 sponsors in, something's worked.
It's now time for your moment of truth. Did you initially seek out a corner office post? Was that something you were gunning for? And if not, what made you ultimately accept the role?
Yeah, it's funny. So I didn't.
You didn't.
It's not like I was.
That's what everyone says.
No, truthfully, I was very happy. I was in my mind like, I could actually see, retiring at some point in 5 or so years. But we changed the investment thesis back to family history. I'm passionate about what we're doing, passionate about our consumers, and really love the company. And so this was one of those cases of right person, right time. And so we're doing it, and it's working out well. A couple of quarters in, so it's early. But it's definitely landing well with our consumers, employees. The results are turning around. So.
I'm going to pause here. Any questions from the audience? Please raise your hand, and a mic handler will come to you. Any questions? All right, well, I have many more, so we can keep going. You held a COO/CFO role, and one thing I've certainly noticed as a leadership editor at Fortune is that a number of CEOs, they're sometimes used to minimizing financial risk. So I'm curious, what does that rewiring take to think not just about protecting value, but creating it? And I'm curious from your perspective and certainly from yours.
I'm so glad you asked. That's definitely probably the biggest change that I need to make is rewiring your brain. Instead of trying to come up with risk-adjusted returns and looking at the downside, and frankly being a little glass half empty. Now, it's all about growth. Frankly, there was an acquisition that I had passed on in my capacity as CFO, just wasn't sure risk-adjusted returns there, that now I'm actually in hindsight, maybe we should go look at that, just in the art of the possible, what can you do? So it is just, you got to do Control-Alt-Delete, if that's still a saying, with your brain to sort of reframe yourself to focus on growth and open the aperture as to how we could get to increase enterprise value.
Yeah. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that,
Yeah.
and especially as you think about the scaffolding.
Well, the CFO path, whether it's COFO, CO, whatever acronym you want to give, I think that is the adjustment that often needs to happen. Not always. It depends on the role they're on. What we often will find is COOs who have finance earlier in their career, they have it, they've done a tour of duty, that becomes less an issue. They've it's been rewired out of them. But it definitely is, and this is, I said, one of the shadow sides of we love the financial acumen, the discipline, the strategic CFOs, but there is sometimes a rewiring, and the question is, do we have the luxury of time for the rewiring? In Howard's case, he's being modest, but I think he had enough commercial acumen and exposure to the business that there wasn't. In ours, we just don't really have that time. So we've got to be pretty comfortable that somebody can either has demonstrated, or has the potential to do it.
I want to go back. So we had our inaugural COO summit last year. Many attendees in the room, I went around asking them, would you be interested in one day sitting in the corner office? Some were perfectly fine to sit in the number 2 seat. A number of them said, you know what, we would do it if it's a private company. But many actually were averse to being the CEO of a public company. And so I'm curious whether you think private companies, and you might be a little biased, but offer an increasingly robust path for those who are thinking about pursuing the corner.
I'm so glad you asked this. I mean, remember, we have public companies as well. So we've got the path to exit for many of our companies, just given the scale, is an IPO. So I feel pretty agnostic. But the data that's important for all of you to know that surprised me was 86% of companies over $250 million in revenue. 86% are private. Public companies peaked in 1996 at about 7,000. They stand at about 3,200 today. So the economy in the world is moving increasingly private. Why? You don't have to go public to actually get capital, right? We also have a credit arm. There's lots of different access and vehicles. So that is the reality. And so to answer your question, I think for many who grow up in the public market, they're tuned, they desire, they get it. I do feel it's an advantage we have. It's a tailwind. Somebody asked me at lunch today, are we finding scarcity of talent for CEOs? And I said, actually not. I think folks are attracted to, one, the hyper clarity and alignment that private equity provides. You're not questioning what we're trying to do. I mean, it's the investment thesis. We're clear, we're aligned. And that allows us to move quickly. And for leaders who are impact junkies, who like to make decisions, move quickly, and have impact, it's just a beautiful place to be. So I think the market macro trend, the sport, the fun, the decisiveness, and it doesn't mean we shield folks from some of the other parts, but I think it's a different species, and yes, we're finding folks are flocking to private.
I figured as much. Let's end by talking about AI. It wouldn't be a Fortune conference without talking tech. I'm curious how you see AI redefining what it means to be an efficacious CEO and just the qualities, experience you're seeking out when you're looking for a potential CEO candidate, and certainly how that's affecting your role as a CEO. Let's start with you, Courtney.
Yeah, so I'd like Francis's comment on bilingual, right? I mean, I think at a minimum, every company, all of our 250, some of them much more fundamental disruption, but there is not one company that we aren't asking CEOs, boards, and teams to come back with offensive, defensive, whether top line, bottom line, whatever you want to characterize it. So we need leaders who understand the questions to ask, the ways to answer them, and embrace an openness, piloting, experimenting, embracing, depending on where you are on the maturity curve. So that's hands down. And so there's probably a more underlying, more than AI or technology, it's just agility that we look for. So I'd say absolutely. Is it AI? We want to engage on that, but there's actually a much more significant leadership trait that we're looking for that applies to probably lots of different things.
Yeah, I think agility is a key word there.
Yeah.
Just to build on that, so we had our leadership, our top leaders in the office in Utah last week, and I brought in half a dozen customers to talk about their experience with the product, and it's really interesting. There is some mixed sentiment inside the organization. There are some people that are genuinely concerned about their jobs, and so one of the objectives of the conference of getting everyone together was to get everybody really fired up and motivated. And so I did my opener. The second section was having this customer panel. And two of our longest tenured customers, who also happen to be probably over 50, if not older than that, absolutely were demanding, what are we doing from a product perspective to give them AI features and tools, which was the best plug I could have for winning over the hearts and minds of the employees. So everybody's customer obsessed, but now our customers are absolutely demanding that and requesting it.
Yeah. So. Well, I think that's a solid place to end. I mean, the corner office role is evolving rapidly, and I think for ambitious COOs, it's those who can be agile, to your point, embrace change, and not only excel in the COO role, but also excel beyond that role. Those are the ones who will really be able to ascend to the top job. So thank you both for such an insightful and robust conversation.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Howard.
Thank you.